Using MS Excel to plan each coordinate, I have created the first fully planned city of mankind, set in prehistory. I will be playing Dawn of Man at the hardest difficulty to build this great city simply known as the Ozymandian Kingdom. Given the ravages of time, even the greatest men and the empires they forge are impermanent, their legacies fated to decay into oblivion. This city, while it lasts, shall, however, be so great that gods invented 1,000 years from its passing shall come with bowed heads to ask our ancestors, who built this edifice? Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, lovers of war, traders of great renown, I, the strategic Indian, bid you welcome to my channel, where our motto is think, practice thinking. If you like the content, please do not forget to like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment, which will greatly help with the almighty YouTube algorithm. I am back after my long naps of the end year to play some Dawn of Man. So, today's episode, our objective is to reach the far end of the city, and then we are going to make a sharp right turn. We're going to sell off as many obsolescent items because we are going to enter the Copper Age. And we're going to set up the metallurgy and the heavy industry, which you can see on the left hand side of the screen. And to do a swift recap, we have done the Weavers District, we have completed the lower half of the city, and I have done the masterclass on farming, which is there on chapter 7. So in case you have missed it, please go and check it out, which will help you to understand how farming works in Dawn of Man and how to be a complete food self-sufficient monster powerhouse. If you don't have food in this game, that's it. Everything else you can more or less do without. If you have, say, go through a devastating raid, you lose a lot of people, you can still hide behind your towers and your wooden platforms and still survive till you get back enough people. However, if you don't have food, it's going to be a very, very swift incline that you're going to fall down under. In the previous episode, we had one mistake, so that's why we have 2 of the towers in the wrong place, but we are placing the 5 houses, and as you can see, this is where the end of the city will be, and then we're going to turn our city at a right angle and continue forward. Of course, as soon as winter comes, make sure that you hit the alarm bell for 1 sweet hot second. That will make sure everybody resets their tasks. There, we hit it again. Because often when you have blizzards, they can venture. So if you hit it the first time, they're going to come back and they're going to dress up. And then they're going to be warm and they're going to leave. However, the blizzard is still ongoing. And if they go into some task which takes them quite a long time, so for example, if they're cutting down a tree and they're bringing it back by hand, not by sled, even if they have an overabundance of sleds, sometimes they go and cut trees by hand, then he's going to walk back, which would in essence make them get into hypothermia, and then you're going to be in trouble. If you're seeing people like over here on screen who are walking back slowly and their temperatures are dropping, then you want to run them back. The running is a bit iffy, so if you double click, if you select the caveman and you double click on a house, it doesn't often make them run. You often have to click on the back end of the house. That's how silly the game is. Unfortunately, the game is no longer in development, so the devs are not going to listen to this. However, that's a little trick. Once you know where exactly to double click in a house to ensure that people are going to be running, then that's very useful. So here you can see I double clicked on the back end of the house. So here we have 3 children walking back slowly. So of course I double click them into the house, and of course once they're inside, go and have a look at what they actually need. So they need to sleep, they need to eat. So these were children who went out for some really intelligent reasons, given how intelligent kids are. to do something that they should absolutely have done. So thanks from the community to them. However, they did not fully think through their problem, and then they got almost killed. Right. So here again, I press the alarm and I notice that some cavemen were not willing to go back. That means that they are confident that they will make it. But of course, there is only that much that you can do in this game trying to save your cavemen, because they are pretty stupid. Right. You can see we have expanded our farming quite a bit, and you can also see the lower half of the first man architecture that we are building, and that is completely filled with food. And we have quite a lot of food, close to 150 meat for 116 people, so that's one more than 1-to-1 ratio. And we have 400 grains stored up, that's close to 1-to-3, more than 1-to-3, close to 1-to-4. So we are maintaining a 1-to-5 food ratio, which is ideal. So that will make sure that you attract new people to your settlement, and that is essential to grow them and make sure that you're powerful. The numbers are always your friend. The numbers are going to make you win every engagement. So we buy, the trader is here, we're going to buy more things than we need, because we have a lot of obsolescent items that we have to get rid of. Sometimes it's not even possible to get rid of all of them. So I always start with the dry skin outfits, because those items cost the most pre-copper age. So as soon as you hit copper age, they are completely rendered useless. They go from a value of 10 to a value of 1. And what we have is an overabundance of animals. We are hunting, and therefore you have a lot of dry skin, which costs basically nothing, because you hunted them, or you cut it, or you sacrificed one of your animals. And then after a little bit of effort, it magically transforms into this high value item costing 10. And then that is the best item pre-copper age. So when you are playing on lesser difficulties than Ancient Warriors, because in Ancient Warriors you already start at the Neolithic Age, which is one age short of the Copper Age. But when you are starting at lower difficulties in the Stone Age, then you have 3 ages where you can use this really high value item to really go and buy up all the things you want to buy. So you want to mass produce all the dry skin outfits that you can get, and ensure that you keep this as liquid cash ready to buy up whatever that you might need to attract new settlers to your community, or to avert disaster, because disaster comes really quick in Dawn of Man. Right. We are going to continue building our defenses up. So at this stage, 2 towers that we have in between the houses is already more than enough. The way you build these are shown on the screen. You will have houses, 5 houses, and then they are going to be having one platform behind them, one platform each, and then behind that is going to be the wall, and guarding the wall is going to be a transpost. So that's where all your sleds and plows and carts in the late game are going to be stored. So there it goes. You can clearly see we're going to place 5 platforms for 5 houses. Again, over here we are going to already prepare 5 wooden platforms, and they are going to have 5 houses in front of them. If you are doing this the perfect way, so if you place the first house correct, then this entire thing should fall into place. This is never going to change. The first house, which we showed in chapter 1, is going to be the most important building in this whole setup, and it's going to ensure that the whole thing is going to fit. So this is the maximum reach of the Ozymandian Kingdom, and we are going to we have already begun to curtail our city, and we are taking sharp turns to join up the 2 ends. And before we reach the Bronze Age, I think this entire thing is going to be armored up and totally defended by towers and rows of wooden platforms and powerful walls, which will make short work of any attackers who dare to come to our kingdom. We don't attack any of the other kingdoms because, yeah, we don't have the facility to do so. And if you watch my Total War series, then trust me, my kindness is not a sign of weakness. So this is harvesting season, so we will have quite a lot of workload. I'm quite glad that the trader came in, so I'm gonna buy up all the stuff that we can from him. I don't need the food, but I buy it anyways because I want to ensure that I can have a good food to population ratio, and therefore I am able to get more migrants in. So let's sell out all of these bone and bone harpoons, these obsolescent stuff. Let's get rid of all of these skin outfits. So I try to get rid of the skin outfits first because those are very high value items, and bone, for example, still costs 2 in the Copper Age. It goes to value 1 in the Bronze Age, but if I don't need to sell it off, I don't sell it off pre Copper Age because it's more imperative that I get rid of my dry skin collection. This is the best fashion from the prehistoric world, and we're gonna get rid of it until we can have woolen cloth for everybody. We have got the weavers district set up, so you can clearly see how quickly all of our people are going to get equipped with clothing. So how quickly we went to 150 woolen cloth because we have the wool coming from 20 sheep, which is going to be the maximum that you need. You even in very late game, you don't need more than 20 sheep. Maybe you want to go to 30, but yeah, you really don't need it. So farming is commencing. Of course, once you are approaching near the Copper Age, your farming is going to get more and more difficult. So our food, which is now sitting at 620, which is close to a 1, is more than a 1 to 5 ratio, is actually not over hoarding of food, because we are going to farm less and less as we progress. If we get one raid in the planting season, then probably we won't be able to plant in that entire season. Therefore, we want to build up this gigantic food reserve, which we are going to use up slowly as we approach the Bronze Age. Probably in the Bronze Age, we are going to hit 0 food in this series. However, that's nothing to worry about. We actually plan for it, and therefore we have the luxury to go down to 0 food because we will have enough migrants come in, and the point is to avoid starvation. So make sure that we have enough food that they're eating all of their reserve when we are in the Bronze Age, but we will still have enough that we don't go into a famine condition. We have quite a lot of different directions that we are going to be pulled in, and therefore in the summer and the winter we are going to not do anything in terms of planting. So we are not going to go for pulses, we are not going to go and harvest them in the summer. We are going to ensure that we have 2 seasons straight out for us to go and make sure we can do extraneous things. For example, cutting down trees, making sure we are ready for the harvesting and of the fall, and that we are rested and we have chance to make sure that we get a lot of ladies in our settlement pregnant. So what you can do is you can go, and when you have a low workload, then they are going to reproduce faster because they have time for baby making. Right. So now we are completing the third quadrant. So we are making the defenses for the third quadrant, which is imperative, and that's going to be guarded by 3 towers at the end. And we are also going to have 2 towers wherever the 5 houses end. So things are going according to plan. 4 new people have joined, so that's fantastic. The best you can do at this stage is 6. I am going to put in orders for a large number of axes to be built because I want to finish up these flints that we have, that we can still trade flint items for their full value, which is value of 10, except for flint picks, which have a value of 5 in the copper age. In the copper age, we are going to make sure that we do another round of getting rid of obsolescent items. So here you can see we are in the summer, and therefore we're going to put the defense in high gear, and we're going to make sure we maximize and put high priority, and that this gets done. So that it's been a while since we have attacks come in. Attacks come in generally once every year in the late game, and generally 1.3 to 1.5 years in the early game, which we are in right now. Mid game I consider as the Copper Age and the Bronze Age. It does not last very long because Copper Age we reach absolutely towards the end of when we need to reach it. So as you can see, we have hoarded 132 knowledge points, and we have not yet entered the Copper Age. You want to enter the Copper Age when you are near 110 knowledge points, provided you did not research the last 2 texts of the Neolithic Age, like we didn't. We did not research those 2. We bought those 2 researches, and then we waited for 100 knowledge points to be accumulated, which we are going to use in rapid succession in the Copper Age and the Bronze Age. In the Copper Age, we are going to use our strategic amount. However, in the Bronze Age, we are going to use quite a lot. And once you hit the Iron Age, you want to again use knowledge points as you get them, because there is no age after that. There is no point hoarding any of that. And once you are in the Iron Age, you want to make sure you have a particular number of knowledge points. We'll get into that. It's quite far away for us. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's build sleds. We have got 80 leather, which is a fantastic amount. And let's go and build sleds so that we can make workloads much easier. So sleds have got a capacity of 6 slots. So you can carry 6 items simultaneously. So you are doing the job of not only of 6 people. All the things which are being carried in the sled, which are heavy items, so for example ore, metals, wood, rocks, whatever, when you pull them with the sled, you don't lose morale. However, if you don't have sleds, if you don't have a 1-to-1 ratio of sleds for adults, then they're going to carry them. So 6 adults will be required to do the job of 1 sled, and they are going to lose morale. So they have to come back to base, and then they are going to have to get their morale up, which is all time that you waste. Now, what I am currently doing is I am making preparations for another series where I go completely vegan. So then you will see that I won't be able to produce enough sleds because I won't have access to leather, because I won't have access to animals, I won't be able to hunt. So that will be very interesting. So I really hope I'm putting in the finishing touches of where I want my buildings, what buildings should be in them. So I'm optimizing all of that. This current setup is not going to work because the defenses are not going to hold up. However, stay tuned for that. So vegan city is incoming, and by no means I'm a vegan. I'm not a vegan. I come from a state in India which has got 99.3% people are non-vegetarians. So yeah, it's not a fad I'm following, so please don't comment that this is some bullshit fad that a modern fad that I'm trying to recreate in the prehistory. No, I just think it's a fantastic challenge, and it's going to have completely different constraints than what you have when you are relying on animals, when you're relying on hunting and going out and completely dominating, building these gigantic food ratios of 5 to 1. Yeah, good luck when you're doing that vegan, because you have no access to meat, you have no access to fish, you don't have skins, you don't have leather, you don't have bones, you don't have dry skin, you can't build totems, you can't build anything. Right. Let's get back to reality once again. That's a little bit of a teaser of what's coming in, but what is coming in right now is a bunch of raiders. So what I'm going and doing is I am going in and checking what weapons they are carrying. So I'm trying to see if they are carrying any copper items in their midst. So that will tell me that they have reached the copper age. And if they reach the copper age, then that means I will also have to transition to the copper age. Attacks like this are really painful because this is during the harvest season. So all my cavemen have to walk back all the way to this end of the city. And then they also have to go back to harvesting. However, the good thing about getting this attack, the only good thing about getting the attack is that as soon as you win, your morale is back up. So they are going to go back to farming very happy, and once they have full morale, then they work faster. So the harvesting is going to happen much more efficiently, and all the tasks which they had been juggling, they are going to be reset for you to go and do farming first. Right. Time to enter the copper age. We have entered the metal age, and trust me, this is going to be absolutely metal. So we are now going to start placing down our copper mines. We have got 2 copper mines in this vicinity, very close to our settlement, as you can see, right here and right here. These 2 are going to be the first which are going to be completely exhausted, because they are the nearest and they prefer something which are nearer. And then you have 2 more across the hills, right here, and 1 more right here. Let's have a look at the copper mine. Look how beautiful they are. Copper is generally found as an oxide. Because copper is so reactive, it's impossible that you would get copper in the wild without the oxide layer forming, because part of our atmosphere is oxygen, and oxygen is quite a nice attacking element. So you have copper oxide, which is green in color. Therefore the Statue of Liberty is also green, because that used to be copper. And what you get is verdigris, which is the unofficial name. But you have copper oxide, which is the formal name, forming, which is green in color. Now, I still remember way back when I started as bachelors in chemistry, our teacher asked that, tell me from a perspective of chemistry, what is the order of copper age, bronze age, and iron age? Right now, it seems very, very, very easy. Yeah, of course, it's the copper age first, then it's the bronze age, and then it's the iron age. However, what he said is that, you see, what you can do, that if you just heat copper oxide, you get copper flowing out. So that's the easiest. However, that copper also oxidizes, and then whatever instruments and tools you make out of copper also goes to waste really quickly. So people had to think of an alternative, and that took time in research. And then they figured out that, hey, if we go and put some tin inside of this copper while we are smelting it, we get something which is far more harder, which does not oxidize as faster, far more durable, and therefore we went to the Bronze Age. And all the bronze came from a single mine nearby Afghanistan, and another mine which was in England. You had a larger preponderance of copper around the world. Copper is much easier to find, but tin is really tough. And it comes from Afghanistan, where you had a bunch of very primitive tribesmen who would not part with the treasures. And once this chain fell apart because of the sea peoples, or because the sea peoples were created because the tin supply was broken down. Then you had the Bronze Age collapse, I believe around 1100 BCE. 1100? I would have to check that. Yeah. So then you had the Bronze Age collapse, and that was just a complete disaster. It was such a disaster that humankind completely forgot to write. We gave up writing. We forgot about metallurgy because people were just trying to survive. You had these great empires which completely withdrew into a shell, except the Egyptian civilization, because it couldn't, because they depended on the Nile. And when the attacks came at the mouth of the Nile, there was nowhere that they could go behind, because then you had the desert. And yeah, then you have the choice of dying in the desert, or you hold with whatever means you have the coastline and the Nile, and the mouth of the Nile. However, the Assyrian kingdom, the Greek kingdoms like Mykonos, they completely gave away all of their coastlines, and they just retreated way back into the strongholds, and then they just waited out, hoping for this supply chain to be made again. And finally, what you have is the Iron Age. So people knew about iron ore, which you could get from pits and marshes, like pig iron. Pig iron is processed. So, like iron, which you can get. However, what you had to do is you had to add copper. You had to add carbon to make sure you can reduce the iron, which is at a higher oxidation state because it's an oxide, down to its native iron. So that's what our teacher said, that it took 1,000 years of research to figure that out, that we have to add charcoal and we have to add carbon to this iron ore to make sure we get iron from there. And then steel is just a much better form of iron, because you could add additional elements. You could add manganese, you could add chromium, and therefore we could then enter the steel age, to the point that, yeah, nations' progress is pointed out by how much steel that they can make. For example, the American industrialist Andrew Carnegie, he said, mocking Indians, so after the Indians got independence, it was really hard because, British had taken $45 trillion of loot away from India, left it with only 17% of graduate with no heavy industry. And then we were trying to make steel. And then Andrew Carnegie, mocking that effort, said that if the Indians are able to make steel up to British standards, I will eat every pound of it. So, given the amount of steel India makes and the gigantic amount of railways that we have built, all with Indian steel, I think Andrew Carnegie, no matter which level of hell he is residing in, is going to have one tremendous stomachache. Right, so that's a bit of history, which I like to digress and talk about. So here we have a lower amount of bargaining power right now because we just entered the Copper Age, but we still have quite a lot. For example, our skin outfits don't cost much, but what we have is a lot of these tools that we are going to get rid of. But we'll do that strategically, because I don't want to give away all of my flint harvesting tools and then be left scratching my head that how do I actually harvest, because I'm not able to produce the tools, copper tools in great quantities yet. However, we'll get to it. We have 100% workload, so bunch of wolves have come into our territory and they're going to get owned, right? So that's them. We get a good amount of meat and skins from them. So Yarkal is very hurt, so I'm going to make sure he runs back into his into the tent so that he does not get any infections, and he can. You don't get infections once you're inside a hut or a roundhouse or a tent, so that's why I push him to run into that. However, his health is really low. If he gets an infection after he comes out of the roundhouse, yeah, it's GG for Yarkal. We are also going to start building blacksmiths. So we are going to build 1, 2, 3 blacksmiths, and I put one blacksmith which is going to become an armorer. So that's this one, and I then remove it. So I refuse to count squares like in Minecraft, but I count squares by putting in items and then moving them. We have a okay amount of wood and sticks, because be mindful, in the copper age you're going to use a lot of wood because you are going to do a lot of construction in terms of defense, which requires wood and sticks. You are going to build houses and a lot of warehouses, and our third quadrant needs to be built. However, you also need a lot of wood to go and build charcoal. So we have charcoal pits and 3 charcoal. So one charcoal pit will take in 3 logs to build to craft 6 charcoals. So that will take quite a lot of charcoal, because you're going to aim to get around 50 to 100 charcoal. So that's close to say 50 wood that you would need in rapid succession. So our first workshop is going up. The second one is also getting up and ready. So it's a very beautiful building. I quite like it, and it has got 3 outlets, which allows people to go pass through them. And I like that 3 outlet that they have, because I'm able to position it in a beautiful fashion syncretically with the warehouses nearby and almost abutting it, so that any item which is required for it can be picked up from the warehouse and then stored back in the warehouse. We are now going to start capturing cows because they are just fantastic. So they are a much improved version of goats and pigs, because they are going to produce enough milk, meat, skins, and bones to carry us forward. And we are going to slowly get rid of our goats and pigs. Pigs going first because they take quite a lot of work to maintain. Pigs actually take the most amount of work, and goats take the least amount of work to maintain. So there is a huge forum discussion, and I have people who are complete fanatics about just having goats. So they don't even go to the cows, and this was before plows got implemented. So that changes, because adult male and female cows can pull these sleds. Right. Thank you for the views, and I look forward to having you guys over for the next turn, where we are going to enter the Copper Age and power through. This has been the Strategic Indian, signing out.